We have the pleasure today of welcoming Charles Chuck Childs, who grew up in Montreal, and in 1978, following his role as production manager for the Sadie Bronfman Center, which is now the Siegel Center, he moved to Centaur Theatre Company, where he was production manager for 13 seasons, supervising over 100 productions on 2 stages, including 1 international tour and 3 national tours. In 1991, he became Centaur's general manager. In service to the Quebec arts community, he's been a member of the board of directors of the Quebec Drama Federation for 19 years. In 1994, Chuck was a founding board member of the Quebec Community Groups Network, an organization supporting the English language community in Quebec.
Great.
QCGN, he co-chaired the IPULC negotiating committee in 2001, which resulted in Heritage Canada providing $2.6 million over 4 years to the Canada Council to be earmarked for the English arts community of Quebec. In 2005, he helped establish the English Language Arts Network, an organization supporting and promoting English language artists in Quebec in all disciplines. Chuck served as board member for 8 years, the last 4 as president. There is more. For the Professional Association of Canadian Theatres, he has been a longtime member of the Governance and Finance Committees. During its 2009 AGM conference, the first ever national event bringing together French and English theatre professionals took place. He chaired the first and second negotiating team for the PACT APASC Quebec's Theatre Designers Union collective agreement. As an educator, Chuck taught production management at the National Theatre School for 20 years and has lectured at Concordia University and McGill University. As a senior survivor of the National Theatre community, he's frequently consulted by emerging general managers across the country, and they're lucky to have him. He has been recognized for his contributions to the theatre community with a lifetime membership in CITT in 1994, was the inaugural recipient in 2009 of the Quebec Drama Federation's Chuck Childs Award for Leadership in the Quebec Theatre Community and recipient of PACT's 2012 Mallory Gilbert Leadership Award. In 2020, he was the first Anglophone to receive the Conseil québécois du théâtre's Centennial Carrière Prize, which is awarded to a cultural worker whose professional career has been illustrated by a remarkable contribution that leaves a significant legacy to the Quebec theatre community. Chuck is married to the wonderful Anne Clark, and they have 2 grown daughters. He's also the proud owner of a 1979 Austin Mini, his 11th in 40 years. And with it, he says he gets more smiles per mile than any other car on the road. Welcome, Chuck. We are absolutely delighted and honored to have you with us. And please start your presentation because we await with bated breath.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for the invitation. I must say, after hearing all that, I'm exhausted at this, but it's great to be here. I consider myself very fortunate to work in an industry that I think matters, and that it's been a pleasure to work. I've met and worked with some fabulous people, and continue to. I'm not quite out the door yet, but there's mostly it's my wife pushing me, but we'll get there for sure. What I wanted to do was start a little bit sort of on the origins of Centaur Theatre. It's now a long time ago. We're about to launch our 54th season, but way back in the late 60s, it was Morris Podbury who was invited to take over a small struggling theater company called Instant Theater, which produced theater for lunchtime audience in Place Ville-Marie. He had been teaching at the National Theatre School and knew that this building, the first stock exchange built in Canada, had been sold to a group of artists who had begun a renovation to turn the building into a performing arts venue and had gone bankrupt. and the place had been boarded up with about almost $200,000 liens on the property. So he agreed to take over Instant Theater if the board of directors agreed to look into being able to create a legitimate evening regional theater company, which under the direction of Herb Arbach, who was the chairman at the time, they proceeded to do that. And by first renting this facility for 5 years, while they put together the financing to purchase it and the government support to finish the renovations. One of the things that was sort of interesting about it is that they immediately launched the first season with a subscription season, as they did for the next 5 years, even though because the building was under trusteeship, they actually only had a lease for 1 month per month. So at any point in time, the trustees could pull the plug and they would have to find new homes for the rest of the season. Also, shortly after they launched the first performance, the company that had installed the seating in the theater, who hadn't been paid, came in and took all the seats. So they ended up making arrangements with a restaurant across the street who only served breakfast and lunch. And indeed, even when I joined the company for season 10, there was only one restaurant that was open in the evening between McGill College and Saint Laurent down here in Old Montreal. It was very much a port part of the city. So everybody that was working down here was all about servicing the port of Montreal. So they were all long gone by 5 o'clock. So we made arrangements to borrow their chairs, and we'd they would bring over the chairs that were necessary for the number of tickets they'd sold that night and have them back before breakfast the next day. Morris also loves to tell the story that on Fridays, he used to go around and twist board members' arms for cash to pay the actors on Friday. And then he would go around on Monday with the proceeds from the box office over the weekend to pay them back. So it's has fairly humble beginnings. We're very proud of the history. I've been lucky enough to work with now all 4 of the artistic and executive directors that have run the place, starting with Morris, who I worked with for 19 years, and then with Gordon McCall, and then Roy Surratt, and now Ida Holmes. Each one had quite different views of the world and what they believed was important to put on the stage. And it's always an interesting process to watch the artistic director and be part of as they put together a season of plays, because essentially a season of plays is not 5 or 6 individual plays. It's a season of plays. So there's a relationship between the beginning, the middle, the end. There's trying to cover, because we're one of the few companies that produce regularly in English. So there's a sort of a responsibility to try to cover a little bit of music, drama, new work, old work. And what's interesting is that as the artistic director starts putting together the pieces, nothing is ever sure or guaranteed that's going to go into the season until all 6 are there. I use the example of one year we were looking to do a show, and there was a lovely play about a World War I young man who went off to the war, and his girlfriend was left, and it was the relationship between them. And a lovely play, and it was for sure we were going to be doing that one. But as the season moved along and we ended up with some other plays and other choices and what have you, along came another play called Saltwater Moon, which was about a young man who had just come back from World War II. And because there was an outstanding actress in town that Morris really wanted to have in the season, then that became the play that we did in the season. And suddenly the first show about World War I was gone because we wouldn't have a season of 6 plays with 2 dealing with the same kind of topic. So it's not, as I say, it's never, I have staff here that go, we need to know because we need to get the brochure organized. We need to know, tell us what shows are for sure in. And I go, well, I can tell you what shows are going to probably be in, but there's nothing really guaranteed until all is said and done. So that's where we are. And by that, I'm going to lead us into a sneak preview by about 15, 20 minutes of what we're going to be doing next season. We have, Ida has led us to say, we are doing a 4-play season next year and the hell with COVID. So we're striking the positive approach to it, and that's where we're going. So I'm going to give you the sneak preview, which, as I say, should be up on our website probably by 12:30, 1 o'clock today. The first show is a play called Cyclorama, and it's dealing with the sort of coming together of this idea that Centaur Theatre and Théâtre Aujourd'hui, the French theater company, all celebrated the same year as our 50th anniversary. However, we'd never worked together. And there was sort of a lot of discussion about this idea of the two solitudes in the arts world, and that we have so much in common except for the language that we should. So Ida and the artistic director from Théâtre Aujourd'hui decided to commission a play to be written by a couple of fabulous artists and create the show about a little bit about the history and talking about that relationship between what was going on in the English side when what was going on the French side, and how it went back and forth and the different points of view on it. What's really going to be interesting is that in order to do this, it'll be a bilingual show. It'll have subtitles in the opposite language. And the first act will take place here at Centaur Theatre. And at intermission, the audience will all get on buses and drive up that divide, the St. Lawrence Main, between the English side and the French side, up to the Théâtre Aujourd'hui, where the second act will take place at the Théâtre Aujourd'hui. It's something that's never been done before. It should be a great experience. While on the bus, the intention is that there'll be some commentary about the physical part of the city in relation to this theme of this play. So we're all kind of got our fingers crossed, holding our breath, and sort of jumped off. We started, this was actually going to open the 2021 season and has been being put off, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it beginning in October of this year. Following that is a relatively new play by Canadian playwright, outstanding Hannah Moscovich. And the play is called Sexual Misconduct of the Middle Classes. And it's a really kind of interesting, dynamic view of a relationship that develops between an exceptional female student and her older professor, and the relationship that they develop. And it's very much, I was going to say, taken from the point of view of the young woman. And it really is, has quite a different take on the situation of the Me Too generation. So we're really, and we have two outstanding actors. One of them you may know from a previous Centaur is Marcel Jeannin. He did play God in Paradise Lost. So he comes with good credentials. After Christmas, we're going to do a new play by Steve Galluccio. You may remember Steve wrote for us the Mambo Italiano, which was such a big hit. This is a little bit different take. It's called At the Beginning of Time, and it's quite a personal story of Steve's. And I'm just going to read you it's an autobiographical story of a gay man in his late 50s who thought his life was settled only to be thrown to a new world where he has to reimagine everything. And Peter Hinton, who will be directing it, says, with everything we've been through, it really is the beginning of time for all of us. The way we once lived is over, and how we live now is essential. This is a play dedicated to rebooting and beginning new chapters. Steve Galluccio said, writing the play, after this pandemic is done, if we ever are done, we'll be in a new era. So that's show number 3. The last show, which is really quite a dynamic play, it's called King Dave, and it's about a young man trying to make his way in the world in North Montreal. And in terms of that environment, as we know, there's a bit of an ongoing issue with gang violence and street gangs, and trying to resolve some of that violence. And this is a play about a young man with accompanied by music, but is, as it says, makes the wrong choices and then is dealing with the wrong choices. This show was created by the Jean de Sepp Company about 2 years ago, and it was a huge hit there. And they took it to on tour across Quebec. Again, it was very, very popular. In actual fact, they just brought it back for a week, 2 weeks return a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be doing the world premiere of the English version of the play. So the actor in it is Patrick Emile Abelard, who was in our production of Choir Boys and also was in Paradise Lost. An exceptional young man, and I think that you'll really, really be impressed with him and his story. We'll end the season with adding a play by a favorite, Ronnie Burkett, the puppet master, who brought us the Daisy Theater and puppets. And this time, the Daisy Theater is going to do Little Willie. So of course it is going to be on William Shakespeare. So it'll be Ronnie's sort of irreverent and funny and charming at the end of the season. So one last thing to throw in, well, 2 things actually. One, in December, we're going to have a jazz concert with Rani Lee, and she's going to bring her band or sides people and keyboardist, and we'll have a concert for 2 or 3 nights in December. So, which should be a lot of upbeat jazz music. So looking forward to that. The last thing that I want to talk about, which sort of leads into another part of the topic, which was about what's happened in the past 2 years here at Centaur during all of the lockdown and not lockdown, and not being able to go into work, and yes, you can go into work, but only two of you at a time and all of that. A lot of theater companies were struggling to try to recreate what we do on stage online and find ways to try to continue to perform in a way that's would be of interest, and that in trying to understand how we can actually continue even though we can't have people in the theaters, all the while struggling with the fact that our art form, which obviously we believe in, is an art form that requires physical audience. It's not. So we did a number of things. I mean, one of the things that we did was, which was sort of halfway in between, we did a couple of nights shows or presenting small theater companies to do short plays on our front steps in the evening, which was really fun. People got to stand around in the street on the sidewalks and watch the show, which was interesting. But it's very difficult to develop a rapport when the cars are going past, and etc. But we did that as our Portico projects. We also did a few shows where we recorded them and put them online, but never really feeling that it was a very satisfactory solution. A lot of our other colleagues around the country did some wonderful stuff online, but online, when we think of how much entertainment there is that we compete with in live theater, when you compare that to the competition online, which is infinite, it's very difficult to create even an audience or an interest in the work. So what Ida did was we applied for some funding from the Canada Council, and she has created a project that we have, a project where we have, she's invited 3 directors to bring 2 projects each and be filmed. Now, we did this here in the building with a full professional film crew. The directors picked scenes from plays, basically monologues, but from actual plays, not single person shows. And they filmed it as a small film. So we'll end up with edited 6 short 10-minute movies. So, and it's basically was shot with, again, highest quality in terms of the equipment and people that we brought in from the movie industry to do it. And we're going to take those, edit them down, and present them and put them online. So people will be able to see them online. But what's interesting is, come the new year, we're actually going to, over the course of, I think, about 6 nights, present 3 of the films for the audience to watch. And then the actors are going to perform those same monologues live on stage to the audience. And afterwards, there'll be a discussion of the impact of, hopefully, many of those people will have seen them online, see them projected like a movie theater, and live on stage. And what is the difference experience that the audience have? So it's called A Theater for One, and we'll be doing those in the spring over 6 nights to have that discussion, to try to come to some kind of understanding of the different relationships. So the idea being to have that film be as a high quality film as possible, but to compare it exactly to the same content as live theater. So we're looking forward to that. So that's been part of how we have approached the situation with COVID. Um, we like everybody struggled with trying to stay viable and open to the public, and to be able to have some relationship. We set out last year, and we sold, I hope some of you bought the membership, which was a very complicated thing that we all thought was very simple, but obviously when it went out to the general public, we got a lot of, what? How does this work? I don't understand. So it's not something we'll actually try to do it again. But we did do 2 of the 4 productions that we had planned. We had to cancel the other 2 based on closing by the government. And in lots of cases, we've offered refunds or exchange for tickets next year, et cetera, on that basis. But we've sort of gone from the most extreme, where we actually had people, a reduced audience, and people came in through the front door. They got their vax checked, they got their masks changed, they got and their tickets checked, and then they were taken, whether they were even seating up one flight of stairs or odd seating up another flight of stairs. There wasn't even the same. They entered the theaters, they were seated at the back, in the middle, in front, so there was no passing on the staircase. Everybody had to wear masks. It was very detailed. I must say the staff did a remarkable job. It worked very smoothly. At the end of the show, they did the sort of airline thing, saying, please remain seated. The people in the front row here exit this way, people in the front row, etc. So it did work. It was all distance seating. So we were doing these shows, instead of for 250 people in the audience, we were doing it for about 100 people in the audience. So it was, and we to sort of designate the seats, we actually put black T-shirts on all the seats that you weren't supposed to sit on. Part of that was to actually help the artists who were looking out into half-empty theater and trying to perform, which was tough for them. They really did sort of work at it, and they were very much appreciative of the fact that they were able to perform. We'd already been shut down for over a year, so it was something that was sort of pretty exciting to actually do that much. So we moved from that to later we were able to less controlled in terms of environment, but everybody being checked for vaccination and masks and distance seating. And then lastly, we moved to some distance seatings if you wanted to book that, and everybody had to have their mask. And as we move forward, I expect in the fall, there'll be no more distance seating. I don't think we'll go that direction, and we'll see where we are in terms of masks, or whether or not we'll ask people to wear their masks as they move about in the building. But even that, as you know, in lots of places, they're even, I think no longer you need to wear your mask on the public transportation. So we'll be making that decision come September in terms of how we proceed on that. I guess the last thing, Tony, I asked Tony, what should I say? And Tony sent me a little list of I guess questions or ideas or starting points, which I much appreciated. And one of them was, he said, and why Centaur? I'm just about to start my 45th year here at Centaur. And one of the things that's is so special about Centaur relative to all the other theater companies across Canada and here in Quebec. Obviously, the first unique thing is being English in Quebec, although we share that with a number, including the Siegel Center, what have you. But one of the core artistic visions of the company is always to produce work that matters, and doesn't mean that it can't be fun or it can't be entertaining, but really it's work that actually matters. I have to admit, I'm envious of, there's a theater company in Montreal who has a theater motto, which I think is perfect. And they say, changing the world one play at a time. And I see that as being, has been our mission with all our artistic directors, to really to do that, to hopefully send you all home with something to think about, talk about, and to be able to give you a new insight or support an insight which you already support. But that's in essence what this company has done, and it's very much why I got into theater in the first place. It's very much why I have so enjoyed working in the industry, and being a theater company, which is, in my opinion, the perfect size, in the fact that there's lots of bigger companies, the National Arts Center, Canadian Stage Company, Stratford, Shaw, much bigger companies, but on the operational side, you sort of quickly go from either you work in putting on the plays, or you go to working in administration. And I come from putting on the plays. As you heard, I production managed for close to 25 years. And I thoroughly enjoyed the process of creating the show with the directors and the designers and the actors and whatnot. And one of the things I'm very fortunate, even though I moved from that to the administration side, we're a small enough company that Ida and I discuss plays, choice of plays, why not, who the artist would be, etc. So I'm very privileged to be involved in that discussion, which in larger companies, the general manager is essentially a business side of things only. I also been very fortunate is the production staff, especially our production managers over the years have always been very generous. They even on occasion come into the office and say, we have this problem, what do you think? And I get to explain what I think they should do. Now, I often think they just do that to humor me, and then they go away and do whatever they were planning to anyway. But it's nice to be involved in that discussion. So the company is small enough that I can be involved in that. So it's sort of the perfect size. That and the fact that we're so fortunate to have two venues, one a larger proscenium kind of for more presentational work, and the small theater, the studio theater at Centaur 1, which is much more of an intimate place for smaller, interesting productions. And I think I will leave it there, and I'd love to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Chuck. We do have one question lined up, and that would be Rod. Rod, go ahead.
Thank you for your very good presentation, Chuck, and congratulations on surviving COVID.
Thank you.
My personal history with that building goes back to 1959, when I spent 6 months on the floor of the Montreal Stock Exchange, which in those days used chalk to mark the prices. But we were very modern. We had a direct phone line to the Toronto Stock Exchange floor, so I was on the arbitrage line. And I guess however many years later, I was a subscriber to the Centaur before being moved to Toronto. Now I'm back in Montreal. I look forward to becoming a subscriber again. By the way, my father was a matinee idol on the London stage in the 1920s. He came out on a production of Star to Montreal and met my mother.
Excellent.
Little theatrical history.
Excellent. Great story. Well, listen, sometime, you should, maybe if you're coming down to see a show, give me a call and maybe if I can arrange it, I'll be happy to take you around and we'll try to find where the phones were.
Anyway.
Very kind, Chuck. Thank you, Rod. Any other questions? Yes, there's Jim Fairs with a question. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you very much, Chuck. You kind of alluded to it in terms of taking films of plays now and seeing if you can put that online. Are there any people under the age of 35 or 40 going to the theater anymore? Or are they all on their machines?
It's interesting. It's one of the things that we're sensing at the moment, that younger people are going to be actually more quick to adopt theater now that we've opened up than, for example, older people, which are still carrying the concern of COVID and health issues. That we're actually thinking that the younger people are going to be interested. We know that it's an interesting, when you talk about audience, the audiences on the French side tend to be younger, and than on the English side. But I think part of that too is both programming, the choice of shows that we're doing, and I think that Ida is, I think, really it's hard for her because she's only really programmed one season here, even though she's starting her 6th season with Centaur. But I think her sensibilities of shows will actually bring young people in without alienating some of the people that have been coming, like yourself, for many years. So,
you have to get edgier for the young people?
your pardon?
Do you have to get edgier for the young people?
Well, it's more a question of stories. Like, the perfect example is King Dave. King Dave is a young man who's a Black man who's like 19 years old. So it's a young person's story, but what's interesting is a young person's story, but it's set in an environment that doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are, we're all dealing with that street violence, and trying to understand how have we lost these young people to that. And for the young people, it's a story that's their story. It's what they're living with. It's who their friends are. So it's really trying to put the people on stage that we want to see in the audience too. And that goes to diversity as well. I mean, for too many years, our stages have been predominantly white, and we need to expand that. I mean, I think another thing I will say about Centaur is that Centaur, even from the very beginning with Morris, worked very hard to have a greater diversity on stage. His programming of Athol Fugard South African plays during apartheid, those which continued through, and same thing for all the artistic directors. And Ida's first season, she programmed Choir Boys, which was about a young private school, boys private school. And so it's, yeah, I think we will get younger people. I think historically, it's always been a kind of a struggle. We see the kids through high school and CJEPs. We often get them coming with school groups and what have you. And then we kind of lose them from about 20 to 30. Well, they get married, set a family, and start there. And we start to see them coming back, hopefully, in their 30s, on starting with date nights that become more regular. But it's also the world we live in. It's a struggle to, as I was at a theater conference here in Montreal, and one of the other artistic directors said, you know, it was a francophone, so there's about 40 theater companies in Trenton. He said, frankly, my competition isn't anybody here in the room, any of the other theater companies. My competition is Netflix, and that's it's both trying to actually get people out of their house. It's so easy to go, oh, I'll just watch another series and then we'll go at some other time. Kind of thing. So that's what we have to do. Did that answer the question?
One of the very first plays I ever saw at Centaur was Cesare Banzai is Dead.
Yep.
That's
Good for you. Yeah. One of Athel's all-time hits.
Yeah,
For sure.
long time ago.
I saw a hand,
Thank you.
I saw a hand up.
Yes, that would be Deborah. Please go ahead, Deborah.
Yes, chapeau to you, and your passion and your love for the theater comes through, and thank you for your talk. I have wonderful fond memories back in the 90s. My father was a lawyer, and I think it was Heenan Blakey, and they put on several plays over, I think, 3 or 4 years. And my father was involved in 2 of them. And we have wonderful family memories of those evenings. And I just wanted to bring it up because we still talk about it to this day.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, they were a really a terrific sort of community development and the fundraising event. And briefly, if you don't know what they are, we would put on a play, and the best example is 12 Angry Jurors. And we, the artistic director, then Morris Padre, would cast the show with lawyers, actual practicing lawyers. And the part about the fundraising was that he wasn't allowed by the development fundraising department to cast from more than one law firm. So if he had somebody from Heenan Blakey, then he needed to get something from Stikeman Elliott or any one of the other for any of the other roles. So the idea is the 12 lawyers from 12 law firms to see who could sell the most tickets.
Yeah.
Hence the fundraising side of it. It was, Morris used to say that he would happily direct 3 productions in the season with professionals rather than direct the lawyers.
Absolutely.
Because they drove him absolutely. You can imagine some high-priced lawyers with Morris saying, no, you can't say it that way. And they go, well, that's the way it should be said. No, that's a, so that so the difficulty of that.
Funny family
Like-
stories. Sorry.
No.
One of our funny family stories was during one of the plays, somebody fainted on stage. And my brother, who's a doctor, ran up and looked after that person. And my father was so irritated that he was being upstaged by his son, the doctor. So
Not surprised.
years. Anyway, it was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Before we thank Chuck, any other questions? No? Okay. Chuck, your work within the industry in many key roles is legendary, and we honor your skill and dedication in service to the arts community through the years. And thank you so very much for taking the time to present to us today. It has been a privilege. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Tony, for asking. I'm very happy. It was excellent. And we still have to get that coffee sometime.
Okay, then. So we will end the recording.